Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Breaking Ice and Building Bridges. I'm your one and only host, maybe Mr. Byron Jackson. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, I'm pretty excited to be here today. I have Bridgette. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show today. I'm stoked to be with y'all.
Bridgette is like a professional musician, Amy. I haven't introduced Amy yet, but she's like the star. So this is kind of like Jimmy Fallon, where you and I like banter, and then we bring on the big guns when we introduce Amy. So this is
All
like
right.
our bantering.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
No
What
pressure.
about Amy? Is Amy going to banter too?
Where am I?
No, she doesn't get to banter now, because see, it's you and I. We have to warm the audience up.
Okay. We're here for your entertainment.
There's two people out there listening, and so
Just
we're
Santiago doesn't count.
no.
Oh, we're just
He's
kidding. We
not
love
even-
you, Santiago.
He's not even listening. He has something.
ain't even
He's listening
smiling
to
or
music
nothing.
over there.
There he goes. He's smiling back.
Now you play music, right?
That's right.
All right, so play a little. We both have ukuleles for those of you that can't see us, which that would be none of you but Amy. But anyway, so are we tuned?
Sounds pretty good to me.
Very nice, Bridgette. Well, she has a book. Welcome, Amy.
Oh, well, thank you.
Amy, I'm so sorry. I had to play that for a sec. The true star here on the show today is Amy. We are happy to have you.
Thank you very much. I love that intro and the welcome.
You shine very brightly. I've only known you for a few moments, but I can already tell you're a very kind and happy person.
Thank you. I choose happiness.
You do. Amy is lady. Let me do adjectives to describe you, and then we'll let you describe yourself. You make stuff happen. I have never seen you be around anything where you're not making people think. I mean, you're just making stuff happen. I look up one moment, you're in California and you're doing something. Then you're over here in Oklahoma. I mean, you just are an amazingly vibrant person. And so thank you for being here.
Well, it takes one to know one. So I'm very honored to be in this room with you all and looking forward to our chat today.
Thank you. Now you are Amy Lee. Tell me what you do for a living first, just so.
Oh, I sip wine in my onesie for a living. That's what I
Love
do.
that.
Yeah. Occasionally I do, publish a few books and go to presentations,
Okay,
conferences.
back up here. What is a onesie?
It's kind of like what you have on, Byron, but it's full.
Oh, dear. This is going to be a long one.
Is this edited?
Not at all.
No.
It's what I have on.
I love what you have on. No, a onesie, it depends on how you look at it, right? Because
I
it
don't
can
know
it
what
can
it
have
is.
flaps too. It's just a one-piece overall, coverall, whatever you want to call it, that covers your whole body. And I just...
So like long underwear all the way up.
Pretty much,
Or
yeah.
a night shirt.
Yeah, and you can have like little ears that come out of it, scales that come out of it. It's whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, my roommate has a shark PJ outfit. It's like a shark onesie.
I am wanting one of these.
Let's do it.
They're
Let's
pretty
get
cool.
a possibilities.
That would be
Yeah.
possibilities onesies.
Yes.
That'd be pretty
I'm
cool.
down.
Oh.
Talk about merch.
Oh. This is okay. Notes to somebody. So that's what you do. Now you're married?
I'm married to Joe. We've been together for, 18 years, I think. Something like that. And I have a son who's 14. We're working on a book together that is supposed to come out this spring. though he's sort of abandoned me. So Bus Stop Buddies, I might have to take off his name on the title.
So, it's called Bus Stop Buddies?
Yeah, it's a middle grade book about friendship and bullying. And
was he bullied?
Oh, all the time. So Preston is, he's little like me. And so growing up, he's always being bullied for his size. But he manages it. He knows how to deal with it now because he was enrolled in MMA for a while since he was 8 years old. He's really heavily into football, like sports. He's just all over the place. And he's pretty smart and funny and good looking. So I think that personality has really helped him to shine a little bit.
It's very hard as a parent to sit on the outside of that, isn't it? And it's like you just want to go punch the kids out yourself. And
it is hard. It's even harder when you don't know about it, right? Oh. But luckily Preston is pretty good about communicating. He wears his emotions on his sleeve, so mommy can usually tell what's going on. And I think the worst part for him was moving here from Seattle, starting over, going from a private school to a public school, and just dealing with all the change and getting bullied. And I remember one time he came home just so distraught. And I said, what can I do to help you fix this or make it better? And he wanted to write a letter to the vice principal. And so we wrote it together. And then I sent it off. And the next day, the vice principal called Preston into his office. They had a nice chat, and it made him feel a lot better. And so, it's a two-way street, but you don't always know what's on the other side until you reach out and try to get to the bottom of things,
What's so fascinating in that story to me is how he felt empowered enough that he wanted to deal with it. Like, he wanted your support, but he wanted to be the one to deal with it.
Yeah, I was very proud of him.
Yeah, that's some good stuff there.
Yeah, because he had to feel empowered. He had to feel like he had a voice and to advocate for himself, but he just didn't know how to get to that point, And so I think as adults, as parents, we're responsible for kind of leading or at least clearing the path for them.
Now, were you bullied as a child?
Oh, yes. Same situation, just being small for my size, but also compounded on that is just I was a refugee, right? Like, I came from Vietnam as part of the product of the Vietnam War, or the American War is what we called it over there. And so coming here to the United States when I was 5, fresh off the boat, as they say, and just not understanding how to navigate the U.S. matrix, right? And I also had a heart condition. I was born with a congenital heart defect. And so, being told that you won't see past 5 years old was pretty scary for my mom. And so she hustled to come to the United States to get me the medical care that I needed. Luckily, we landed in Seattle just at the nick of time, because shortly afterwards, I was rushed to Seattle Children's Hospital and had open heart surgery. And that saved my life. And, we talked about me turning 50 this year. So it's a huge, huge milestone.
Yeah, because you wasn't expected to make it past 5.
No.
Good job.
Yeah. So thank you to Dr. Dale Hall, at Seattle Children's. Thank you to his wife, who at the time was the medical illustrator there. And Susan Hall, she was like one in a million. She stood there in the operating room and drew the operation itself. And so she had like 4 or 5 different renderings of my heart surgery that she ended up giving to my mom. And then fast forward, I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I got to meet them both for the first time and, say thank you to my heroes who saved my life, because I never knew who did the open heart surgery or who, drew those drawings.
I've always thought just being living in Norman, where the campus is, so being around a lot of international students that have come here. And so what I find is that when people go to other countries, they learn the obvious codes of behavior, but the subtle cultural ones, they don't know. And it's like we don't teach that anyplace. We don't.
It's hard to teach, though, unless you actually live it and are exposed to it. And I mean, that's one of the things that I encourage with Preston, my son, is to get out there and see how other people live. You know, we travel, and we also, when he was younger, I would take him to tent cities and we would volunteer. And, you know, he got comfortable real quick with, like, you know, stuffing tampons into a box, because that's what you do to help our community. So I'm pretty proud that he's, you know, being raised well and really receptive to what's around him. But he's still a typical teenager.
Well, yeah.
I think that's great that you're teaching him empathy and sort of how to connect with people, you know, from all walks of life.
Yeah, it's.
I think that's important.
We need to, as a community, right, do that for our youth and teach them responsible things like how to manage their finances. That's something that we don't teach our kids at all. Today, I got upset with him because he promised to do yard work at 12:30, and then he pushed it to 2:30. And I'm like, no, you made a commitment. Get your butt up.
He'll run out there for 30 minutes and go, I'm done.
Yeah, well, you know, you can only take so much. I'll take what I can get.
My son was like that, and now he like owns a restaurant, so, and everything has to be meticulously right. And I go, where was this when you were at home?
See, they watch and they learn. They don't always exemplify everything at once, but you give them that foundation.
Well, I thought it was really interesting with Preston that the way that he learned to fight back was the pen and writing and how much you write. And so, you know, he does. He stops and why. So now you have 62 books you've written.
Wow.
No, don't believe him.
I believed it.
I could tell you anything then.
Yeah, we're so gullible. Byron's easy to believe. No, I've written six books published, 3 anthologies published. 2 are in the works. One is Bus Stop Buddies, and the other one is my memoir. And then on top of that, of course, I run Quill Hawk Publishing, and that officially turns 2 years old this August. So it was formed in 2019, but I never opened the doors to other authors until 2022.
Now, do you have other authors that come to you?
I do, which is amazing because for being only a year and a half or almost 2 years old, we have 32 authors.
No kidding.
2 of them are on their 3rd book of publication. Actually, one of them already published their 3rd. And I've got 2 more that just signed today. So, yeah.
So now, if you publish for me, so Bridgette and I would write a book. And then we come to you to publish. And so we pay you and you put it all together for us?
So we have different models, different publishing packages, but basically Quill Hawk Publishing is a hybrid publishing company, and we help writers indie publish their work. So the writers actually own their rights and royalties to their work, but we are their partner every step of the way through a consultative approach. And there's different publishing packages, and there's also a la carte options, right? Because everybody's journey is different. Everybody's needs are different, but we're there to provide the resource. So if you need an illustrator, if you need an editor, if you need an audiobook narrator, I mean, whatever it is from A to Z and even beyond, because we, in that respect, we're different because we love to help other authors promote their work. And so it's truly a partnership.
How do we get a hold of your publishing partner?
If you go to quillhawkpublishing.com.
Quill Hawk Publishing.com.
Yes.
You heard it here. And I get like a 5% discount.
If I get free podcast interviews every year.
She knows how to bargain.
That's a deal. That's a deal. And so that sounds so fascinating. Now, do you write, Bridgette?
I don't, unfortunately, but I have a lot of respect for the craft. I do write lyrics.
That's what I was thinking. Don't you write songs?
I do, but I'm honestly, I'm more into like the instrumentation and like the melodies and stuff like that, kind of like the composition and such, that my lyrics are a little more abstract in a sense, and I kind of like to let the audience kind of decide what it means and decipher. But I've been trying to work my way into using it as more of an outlet.
What about
the
poetry?
writing end of things? I don't write poetry necessarily. Unless you consider like the lyrics a form of poetry, then I guess yes, in a sense. They do have to kind of match rhythmically, and the vowels and everything have to sound right at the right time. And I guess I'm more concerned with having like the pronunciations of words kind of fit in with the song, and then kind of going in and filling in some of the lyrics afterwards. So I have a very backwards approach at it, I think. I think a lot of people write lyrics first and then kind of like put it into the song. And whereas I like focus a lot on the melody and then try to find ways to fit words and meanings in that way. And I think that's why it turns out to be like really abstract a lot of times.
So I just watched the Bob Marley movie a couple nights ago.
You went to see it?
Yes. And it reminded me of that because in some ways he's like that too. The melody comes first, and then he interweaves it with some lyrics. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah, because the melody can turn out a lot differently if you write the lyrics first, So depending on which approach you do, it can change the song as a whole.
So you like that movie?
I loved it. Preston and my husband Joe and I, the three of us went and saw it. It was lovely.
I still want to see.
And the actor was amazing. I mean, to play Bob Marley. Yeah.
So we got your publishing company off the ground here. And you do this all out of your house in a onesie.
Don't forget the wine. Yes, I have that.
Never forget the wine.
Scotch wine, whatever. No, I do a lot of it out of the house. I do it on the road. As you know, I travel when I get a chance to. And I was just in Kansas City for the AWP conference, which was my very first conference where I got to speak with a truly international group of people because every year, 9,000 to 12,000 people fly in from all over the world to attend the AWP conference. And next year it'll be in Los Angeles. But it was my first panel.
What do those letters stand for?
It's the Association of Writers program, basically, Writers and Writing program. And they've been around for decades. But yeah, it's huge.
Now, when did you publish your first book?
2019 of May 2019. So this will be 5 years.
6 in 5 years.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of indie publishing, right? Because you can pump them out as fast as you want. You're not a slave to time, right? With traditional publishing, usually depending on who you go with, you'll have to get an agent. So you're pitching to agents, you're querying them. Once you actually get representation, then they have to go and sell your book to a publisher. If you go with a smaller press, like an indie smaller press, you usually don't have to be agented. You can query directly to the editor or the house. But but it takes time. A lot of authors will get 30, 40 rejections before they get a literary agent that says yes. And that can take a year, it could take 2 years. You get that book out another year or two later, So by the time you finish your book, it could be 5 years really to see it on the shelf. So indie publishing is beautiful.
6 in 5 years.
Yes. And more.
So how much would it cost? Let's say if I wrote a book, how many pages?
Depends on what you're writing. If you're writing
500.
Wow. Okay. We got a fantasy going on here.
I'm just throwing it out there.
So I wrote a book, 500 pages. About what would that cost to publish?
So actually, if you self-publish, that could cost you nothing, to be honest with you, other than you should hire an editor, of course. Editors usually cost between 1 and 3 cents per word. So every word counts.
So we're going down from 500 pages then.
You're like, oh yeah.
10 pages.
10 pages.
200.
No, but if you indie publish on Amazon KDP's platform and you push out an ebook, the only thing that's going to cost you really is the editor, because you can create your own, cover. It may not be good. That's why you should probably hire a professional. But if we were talking about really dollars, it could cost you nothing really, because Amazon KDP doesn't charge you to publish.
But that's you do something different.
I do. So what I do is I provide my authors with the ISBN numbers. And so in the United States, Bowker is the official agency that provides ISBN numbers, and that is like the fingerprint of a book, right? So for every format of a book you have to have one of those numbers, whether it be a translated work or a large print, paperback, hardcover, what have you. So our authors get 2 ISBN numbers. They get graphics that we create to help promote their work, and then we promote alongside them. So we usually use BookBrush or Canva or something like that to create those graphics. Of course, you're joining a community of authors and me. You have basically full access to me. I normally charge for coaching per hour. So that is obviously waived when an author signs with us. And then we do everything from creating an author page for them on our website. We put their books on our bookshelf. So we drive the traffic that gets driven to the Quill Hawk Publishing website. They obviously will take advantage of that because their books are on there. But there's a ton of other little services that we provide, including a free website, a basic one, because a lot of authors are just starting or they don't think about it, right? So they don't have a website.
So 200-page book.
Yes.
Called Bridgette. So we want
Sounds like a memoir or a women's fiction. I don't know.
Bridgette, the memoir.
Yeah. That'll be interesting if Byron writes it.
That's true. So just give me a ballpark there.
If you were to publish with Quill Hawk Publishing, I would expect to pay around close to $5,000 because that's going to cover your editing. It's going to cover the ISBN numbers, and it's going to cover editing. Or did I say editing? Cover editing and just ISBN numbers and a few other things.
See, that's not that much.
Yeah, no, it really isn't
reasonable.
Yeah,
I was just trying to get that number out of you. It's like getting out my used car salesman guy. How much does this car cost?
If you go on our website, the numbers are right there.
Are they?
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you remember, what was your first book?
Snow in Vietnam. Okay. And it's the first of a trilogy.
So I want to hear about that.
You want to hear about that?
That and your recent work, and I want to know about your inspiration behind your writings.
Oh, thank you.
I have quite a few questions.
Okay. Well, Snow in Vietnam is the first in the trilogy, and it's based on my mom's and my escape from Vietnam after the fall of Saigon. So we actually, after the communists rolled in, my mom went into hustle mode and went underground to sell drugs and whatever she could to survive. And it's our escape story, how we came to the refugee camps, all that stuff. And, what started my journey as a writer was when she passed away in 2017, I was just devastated and I quit my job. And I was like, I don't know what we're going to do, but I'm not going back to corporate right now. And I ended up taking 2 years off to write my mom's story because I felt like God was telling me to not only write her story to preserve our history, but to really unearth my history. Because, I was just floating along thinking I'm just a typical American person doing my thing. But I didn't realize that there's this whole history about the Vietnam War and the boat people and the diaspora itself. And so that's what started my journey. After the book came out, there were a lot of interest in, well, what happens next? How did you resettle in America? How did you deal with the PTSD? How did the Vietnam vets deal with everything? And so I wrote Snow in Seattle, which was the sequel. And then, of course, you can't have a sequel without, a third book. At least that's what I thought. And everybody really wanted to know, well, what happened to the little 5-year-old that was supposed to, not make it? And so I wrote a coming of age story about my life as a teenager and how I navigated the American culture and the Vietnamese culture and all the BS that goes in between. So, and it's a cookbook. So if you like to cook.
Wow, yes.
Yeah, the second half of the book has over 100 pages of family photos and recipes.
Wow.
And,
okay,
food.
That's pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions? You're doing pretty good.
Oh, thank you. Gosh, I guess. Yeah. It just sounds like there's a lot of it sounds like you lived through a lot of history yourself. And now it's almost like it shares your personal story, but it is also very informative, I feel like, to people who might not know much about it.
Yeah, I just gave a talk to a Criterion book club out at the country club last week, and it's amazing. I had like 30 women just sitting there not knowing anything about the war and, the Amerasian kids who were left behind by the troops, and just all this history that you don't hear about because it's always been told from a Western lens. And because of those who have gone through the trauma, it takes them at least 40 years to get to that point where they can share a little bit of it.
Oh my gosh, I can imagine. I can imagine that there's a lot to process, especially with your mom passing. I'm really sorry to hear about that too.
Thank you.
What was your anxiety like right before you published? Like, you wrote the book, and then, I mean, you're getting ready to share your innermost thoughts with the world. How was that for you?
It's always scary because it's such an intimate process. You're alone, in your head for 2 years, and you literally cry for your characters. I actually talked to my dad, who was pretty absent in my life growing up, and I just wanted to come clean. And I said, Dad, this book's coming out. It doesn't portray you in a very good light, but I want you to know that it's coming, and hopefully I get your blessing, which he gave me his blessing and said, this is your truth and this is your mom's truth. Tell it. But yeah, I had anxiety because I didn't know, will people think that I'm a horrible writer? Will people think, oh, I got my facts wrong, my history wrong? That was my biggest concern was, I was trying to do so much research, but what if it's wrong? And then you're debuting as an author and then you're not legitimate, or, you're seen as a fraud or whatever.
And also reliving, I feel like a lot of that too.
For sure. And every time I talk about my mom, I end up crying. So it doesn't matter if it's a podcast or if I'm in front of a panel or whatever. It's such an emotional thing, and trauma never goes away. And and it lives on in your kids. So I try to be careful about that.
There is healing though.
Yeah, and writing is very healing. For many people, it's through their arts, and whether it be music or, you just got to find that avenue for yourself.
I do these little blogs that I've been doing, and I just know, like, I'll write something, and so the moment I send it, I start having doubts. Like, will people not understand what I'm doing? And then, like, once I have, like, a few people kind of go, oh, that's cool, then I'm okay. Even if people completely misunderstand what I'm saying. But I do have that moment of anxiety. So I just wonder, is it the same thing with your books too?
Yeah, that's natural though, because you never know how people are going to read it.
How do you overcome that? You personally, like, how do you just keep going through and writing and believing in what you're doing?
The ukulele.
Yeah. Well, part of it is it's not for them. It's for me.
That's a good point.
Right? This writing journey is for me. And honestly, for you authors out there who get your first 1-star review, to me, that is legitimately you're an author now, because you can have all your friends and families who love you and they read it and they give you 4 or 5-star reviews, whatever. But when you get that first 1-star review, you're like, okay, I've reached someone beyond my immediate circle who really took the time to read it. And if they hated it, it just didn't resonate with them. And that's okay, But I always think that...
Did you get a 1-star?
I got a 2-star. And it was just a rating. It was like a 2-star hit and run kind of thing. They didn't leave me a review.
Comment.
And I'm like, I'm gonna pretend that was a bot. That. Yeah, but it's okay. It's for me more than anything.
So how often do you write? Is it every day? Is it like...
It is almost every day. And it's a time suck, I will tell you. And I'm also taking these classes. There's a method writing class that I'm taking from Jack Grapes in LA. And he has a 6-week course that is 4 hours every Tuesday. Wow. And I sit there in my onesie, usually with, wine or beer, and I sit there for 4 hours to learn about the method of writing and the concepts. And it's amazing. People have stories, but they don't know how to write to a point where it really hits somebody, in the heart.
So what is your approach? Do you start more as like a free write, or do you just try to recall things? Like what is your approach?
She's asking some good questions.
She does. I'm going to leave.
You're just here for
go to the bathroom. I'll be
You're
back.
just here for beauty.
Yes, I am. Keep going.
So there's different kinds of writers, right? There's the pantsers and the plotters, and then the plantsers are the in-betweeners, right? And so the pantsers, that's me. I fly by the seat of my pants. I don't structure my stories. I just write. And sometimes it's garbage, but the more you do it, it's like a muscle, the more you do it, something good comes out of it and it gets stronger. And then that's what editors are for. They help you to massage it and turn those coals into diamonds. But I like to write women's and historical fiction because sometimes you can take liberties to create a character that kind of bridges a story together or what have you. But the characters kind of dictate where the story goes and, what is going to happen to them. It's kind of a strange thing to say, but unless you're a writer and you're a pantser, you won't understand that. But literally, us writers who are pantsers, we think about our characters all the time. And, when I was writing Snow in Vietnam, I had to kill off one of my characters because her purpose was met and she wasn't needed anymore. And she had to die for a message. And I literally cried over her, and she's not real. But I know that somewhere out there was a Mrs. Tran who was like her, who went through what she did. And so I cried for that person, That makes sense.
A lot, dude. I'm just so impressed with your fire. I mean, you have such a fire inside of you that is really inspiring to listen to you talk. And I really have just enjoyed listening to Bridgette and you talk.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Don't you think she has like this fire in her?
Yeah, I can definitely tell you're an artist, by hearing about some of your processes and your inspiration. I think being an artist can be really hard sometimes because you really there's so many challenges you have to overcome, not just externally, but internally too, which you kind of brushed upon. And I just have, a lot of respect because I feel like art is so much, it's so needed in this world. And it's something that makes movement and change in other people around you. So I know you say that you're writing for yourself, but I believe that, it's a trickle effect. And the people who resonate with it, I mean, you might have a 2-star review here and then, but I think that ultimately you're doing a really, really great thing for people, whether you see that or not.
Thank you.
I saw this TED Talk on creativity some years ago. And this lady was saying that creativity used to not be assigned to people. That it would be like, let's say we were out dancing and we just kind of got in this spirit of dancing around the campfire. And so we could say that we tapped into the spirit of creativity. When the Renaissance happened, we started assigning creativity to people, like they are a great painter, are a great artist. But she actually believed that creativity is this force that's there that we are fortunate enough to tap into sometimes. And it sounds like you have learned that secret of how to tap into that force of creativity.
And daily too, it sounds like.
I think we all are. It's not just a matter of tapping into it, but just being open to receive
That's a
it.
much better word, yes.
Yeah, because there is an energy out there, a force out there, and I think it's like the 6th or the 7th or whatever, 8th sense, right? Yeah. That and art and creativity is, I think, something that we all have. We just don't realize it, and it's different for everyone. So I was lucky that writing was my calling. Music's definitely not my calling.
Music. Yeah.
I have a question for you. How old were you when you started writing?
What was that? 2019. So that was 5 years when I published, and then 2 years before that. So that was, 7 years before that. So I was 43.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's time for you, yeah.
And you had just started then?
Yeah.
Wow,
I just pivoted because I was
already published.
I was working for corporate at Microsoft and T-Mobile. So technology was my space. I was traveling a lot. I was working with the executives and the board, and it just was the golden handcuffs. It was just too much. 80-hour work weeks was ridiculous. And that's one of the reasons why I was like, I'm burnt out. I'm not going back. And I had to figure out what I was going to pivot to. And I just opened myself up to hear God's, voice saying, you need to write your mom's story. And he just led me from there. I took writing courses and really got myself out there, became less of an introvert because I have to promote my work, but I also have to interview people to write my stories. So yeah, it's a growth process for sure.
Well, I wanted to ask because you're obviously a creative person, and I wanted to know what other, art forms you do, because I know that you had to have been doing more art.
I do draw.
Oh, drawing.
As a matter of fact, you are looking at the number one artist when I was 14 in California. I entered a drawing contest and I won, and I was like on the news and got prizes. I wasn't into football then, but I got like San Diego Chargers memorabilia and stuff like that.
What kind of drawings? Like,
I did a stippling actually. So it's bazillion dots of ink that formed a portrait of Michelle Yeoh. And I also did fun things like Patrick Nagel drawings or, The Simpsons, just whatever. But
a lot of tennis, gymnastics. But thank you. That was a good question. You could come back.
Okay. I have permission.
You can be the co-pilot.
I might not be able
to.
Amy, it is always a pleasure. Come back.
I would love to. Yeah.
Come back.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It was nice to meet you and hear about your story.
You too.
And I'm interested to see your books.
Yes.
So where can we find
them? For the Oklahomans here. Yeah, but that's yours.
I was going to let her borrow.
Okay. Well, you can go to the library and you can go to the bookstores, or you can just go online retailers. Yeah.
Or you could borrow mine, but she doesn't make quite as much.
Which book should you start with? Anyone?
Start with Snow in Vietnam and then follow the trilogy. The last book that I published was called The Copper Phoenix, and that's a really hard one to read. So it's very triggering. It's about sexual abuse. But it's an auto-fiction about my best friend's life, and I ghost wrote that took me 4 years to write that. Yeah. But that too is also in the library and in the bookstores. So, yeah.
All right.
Bridgette, thank you for sitting in.
Thanks for having me here.
And this is Byron Jackson, and thank you, welcome, thank you, whatever they say. At the end of Breaking Ice, Building Bridges.
You're going to close this out with a little bit of song?
Yeah.
I lost my creativity. Woo!
It's never truly lost.
There it is. It's under the closet.
You just had to find it.
I just found it right here. Thank you, Bridgette, for helping me.
You're so welcome. It's always with you wherever you go.
Oh, thank you, Sensei.
Connecting a community through conversation.
Breaking Ice, Building Bridges is the Possibilities community podcast platform. Thanks for tuning in.